Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Rebecca Keppel. In today's video, I am making thank you cards for Frontline Heroes. 2020 has been a very challenging year, and there have been so many people who've really stepped up and stood on the front line to help everyone else. So for Waffle Flower's September 2020 release, they have 4 new stamp sets that are great for thanking those frontline heroes. They feature the adorable hamster illustrations from Liz Meidinger. One thing I love about Liz Meidinger's illustrations is the little critters generally have their hands outstretched, which allows you to put in some of those accessories into their hands without doing any masking for your stamping. And the great part about these sets is that they are 3x4 sets. The smaller size make them more cost effective if you need to grab all 4. In this video, I'm going to share card inspiration for all 4 sets, and I'm also going to share some tips and tricks for Copic coloring very teeny tiny little critters like those hamsters. So let's jump right in and make some thank you cards for those frontline heroes. The first set is Frontline Heroes 1, and it features doctors, nurses, orderlies, and all other hospital and medical workers. So I'm going to share how I Copic color those little itty bitty images and create that slimline card. Okay, so this is Frontline Heroes 1, and I am going to be using some hammer mill paper. It's 100 pound. I like how these 4 guys are all in one stamp together. It just makes it easier to do. Some of those little accessories are super tiny, so I like to stamp everything all at once, and I'm using Gina K Designs amalgam ink because I'm going to be doing Copic coloring. You could use the same ink if you were doing watercoloring as well. So I do like to double stamp it just to get that really crisp black appearance. Here are all the neutrals that I'm going to be using to color the different hamsters. So basically I have 3 C's, a couple of E's, just a couple of different grays or tans or browns so that I can cover the entire face and the little arms and hands and ears with the lightest color first. Then I come in with the darkest color, and basically I am doing the tiniest little flicks with the tip of the brush, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But you might even just be able to get away with tiny little dots rather than flicks because these little critters are so small. So I go in with the lightest color, then I come in the darkest color where I want my shadows, and then I bring the middle color in to pull that darker color just a tiny bit more, and then I bring the lightest back one more time. Okay, to see how tiny you can make these flicks with the tip of the brush, this is a traditional flick that I would use for most of my coloring. And then this is the teeny tiny flick that I'm doing for the coloring on these hamsters. You can see the difference there, how thin it is, and that's how thin of a flick you can get with the tip of the brush. And that's basically what you need to do with these little guys because they're so tiny. For some of the accessories, I don't do blending and shading. They're just too small. But for the shirts and things like that, where you have a little bit more real estate, I do like to go around, say, underneath the collar or underneath the neckline, underneath the armpits, things like that, just to give a little bit of depth and dimension to them, even though they're small. And maybe I'm the only one who's going to notice that, not necessarily the person I give the card to, but I do think it gives them kind of a little bit of a realistic look to them. So that's the whole set. Now I'm going to grab the Modern Neutrals pattern paper from Waffle Flower, and there are a ton of gray tone patterns in here that are really great. So I chose that one and I cut it out with Waffle Flower's slimline rectangle dies, and now I'm kind of organizing how I want everything to sit on this slimline card, and I've put both sentiments down there. I thought that would be really cute, so I'm going to stamp them both with the same black ink that I stamped the critters with. So it says heartfelt thanks for your care, and then I have all 4 of the little images up and down on that slimline card, and I'm using some foam squares to pop them up just to give a little dimension to this card because it's basically pattern paper adhered to a mint green cardstock to call out that the scrubs for the little hamsters there. And then these little critters Copic colored, and that is it. So I do like to use the foam squares to pop them up and add some dimension. So once all the coloring is done, this is a really simple card to pull together, but I think it is such a nice handmade card for somebody in the medical profession right now. So I am making my slimline card by the card base by putting an 8.5 by 11 piece of Nina Solar White into my score pal. Then I put the panel inside to see how wide I need the card base, and then I score it at that line. So I think it was 3.25. I'm going to score it at that line, and then I'm going to put the edge into my Tim Holtz trimmer there and put the bottom edge up against where I know the blade is going to cut, so that I am just cutting the bottom part of that cardstock there so that I can create my white card base. Now this is still going to be a little bit too long, so I actually like to just make sure that I trim off a little bit on the width as well, so that I can just put the panel on top and I don't have anything sneaking out the side. So now I'm going to put some tape runner down on that card base, and I am using ThermoWeb's Memory Runner XL, and I put the panel on top, and I'm going to line it up on the top there and then just trim off this bottom piece. So this is the way I do it so that I don't have to measure. Yes, if I took out a ruler, I could absolutely get this done, but I am lazy, so I like to just do it this way, no measuring, and the trimmer actually goes through both pieces of paper since it's folded over really well, and it has a nice clean, crisp cut. So I really like this trimmer for that purpose. The next set is Frontline Heroes 2, which features mail carriers, delivery people, folks delivering food, pizza, you name it. For this card, I also added in the Skinny Stripes die from Waffle Flower this month, and I decided to go with a square card. Since we already talked about the Copic coloring, I just wanted to show you all the little images that come from this stamp set, but I'm not going to show you how I color them because I did them the exact same way. Nothing changed. I did nothing fancy. So here are all the little images from Frontline Heroes 2. I love that little mask that cuts out. It's just so cute. And I'm going to use the same ink, Gina K Designs Amalgam ink, because I'm going to be doing Copic coloring. This time I am using Waffle Flower's pattern paper pad. It's called Half Half because you get two A2 panels connected, and I'm going to cut one of the panels with this smaller die from the Skinny Stripes die, which is brand new, because I'm going to use it to create some diagonal lines on the corners of this white and blue lined pattern paper. The pattern paper kind of reminded me of notebook paper, and I thought with the red and white and blue, it reminded me of the post office, and so that's where all the elements of this card came from. So I'm just going to put some tape runner on the little strips and lay them down, and then I'm going to flip over the square panel that I've created and just trim off the excess. So this is just a really easy way to just add a pattern paper strip, which I absolutely love working with their pattern paper, and I'll link down in the YouTube description below another video where I used it. So I am going to use the sentiment from this set. I really like that the sentiments kind of match the feel of the set and what's going on with the little images in the set. Thanks for all you do is really great for anybody that's helping out actually during this time. So I thought it would be really nice for your mail carrier. You could put a little gift card in here and leave it in your mailbox for them or whatever. So I thought this was a really cute set. So I'm going to just use a little liquid adhesive for that mask on one of them. And then the other one is dropping some letters into a little mailbox back there. I really love all the tiny little accessories. And like I mentioned, you can just put the little accessories up next to their hands. You don't have to do any masking because everything comes with a coordinating die. The next set, Frontline Heroes 3, features grocery store workers and those delivering food. For this card, I went back to a traditional A2 size, and I'm going to share how I created that linoleum floor and the conveyor belt for the grocery store. So here's all the little accessories and 2 little hamsters that come in this set. The linoleum floor is actually a pattern from the Modern Neutrals pattern paper pad from Waffle Flower. It's this cube pattern here, and I like the dimensional cube effect, but it immediately reminded me of like a grocery store floor. So I am going to cut that down, and then I'm going to use the half-half lines in the unicorn color to create kind of a wallpaper or the wall aspect. So it is an A2 card, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm just layering the unicorn stripes on top of the grid. And I'm going to stamp the sentiment, thank you for being there for us, onto the wall background. Now I'm going to create the little table for one of the hamsters to be ringing things up at. And I'm just using some craft cardstock and cut into strips. So I have a thick strip for the tabletop, and then I made a thinner strip for one of the table legs. And then I put a piece of gray cardstock that's a little thinner than the tabletop to mimic a conveyor belt. So once I have that all together, I'm just going to flip it over and cut off the excess there. I'm going to put the cash register right at the front of that, at the end of the conveyor belt. I'm going to pop up my hamster. And once I did that, I realized that the table leg was way too long. Like she would be hanging from the table if it were that long. So I just trimmed it down to the base of her feet so that it would kind of match up and look okay. And then this guy down in the corner here is going to be the delivery person who's going to deliver some food from the grocery store to someone's home. So I have a bag of groceries in his arms. Again, because of those little outstretched arms, you just glue it right on top. You don't have to worry about masking and all that business, which is just not my favorite thing to do. So now we have more time to make a little scene. So on the conveyor belt, I love that there's a little bag of fruit. There's a package of toilet paper, there's a little bleach bottle and some bread. So, and it's all in a line kind of moving towards the cashier there, which I think is just, it's fun to create these little scenes with all these little accessories. So the last thing to do is just place it on an A2 top folding white note card. And here would be a great little thank you for someone who works at your local grocer. Last but not least in the series is Frontline Helpers, which features the adorable hamsters stitching and sewing masks. For this card, I die cut a bunch of stitched circles to house some of those tiny little accessories that I didn't have the hamsters using. So here are all the little accessories. There's a ton in this one. 2 hamsters that are stitching and a bunch of little accessories. Everything is gonna, again, get stamped with Jeannie K Amalgam Black Obsidian ink. And I double stamp it to make sure it's nice and crisp and black. This time I am using half-half dots unicorn, which is a really pretty pastel assortment of colors, and I cut them out with nesting circles 1 die, which has that stitched edge around the outside. I've cut out 5 of them, and I'm kind of placing them in rainbow order on an A2 white card panel. I'm going to use the center circle to house my sentiment. I love how it says thank you so much, but it's spelled S-E-W, and I'm going to use the same ink to stamp it. I like the black inks to match my critters and my sentiment, and the Jeannie K Amalgam stamps really well for both. I'm using tape runner to adhere these circles down. I am going to pop some things up on top, but I wanted these to lay flat so that the things that I pop up will really stand out. So all 5 circles get tape runner, and the sentiment circle goes right in the middle there. And then I just have fun. So these little circles can house sentiments, they can house tiny little accessories, and we can pop up the hamsters on foam squares. I like to use 2 foam squares for the hamsters. In case this needs to go through the mail, those little foam squares will really keep that hamster nice and solid and dimensional. So the little mask is going to go in one hand of the hamster, and the little spool of thread is going to go in the other. I have the sewing machine up there, and then I have my little hamster sitting in front of it. I think she's the perfect one. The way that she's sitting, it looks like she's working at a sewing machine. She's holding a mask that she just worked on, and so I popped that up on a piece of foam square that I cut. I have a little tiny little heart on with some liquid adhesive, and I'm going to use my scissors just to get it right into place. And that liquid glue takes a while to dry, so it gives you time to move it around. Now I'm going to use another sheet of the half dots unicorn to mat my card panel on top of. So all of these colors really work well together because they all came from the same pattern paper pad. All of this is going to go down on that card base. That's an A2 top folding card base. And I love the stitched lines going along with the theme of sewing on this one. I think it's so much fun. I love making thank you cards, and there are just so many people to thank right now. So many Frontline heroes who I'd love to send a card to. So I really enjoyed working with these 4 sets to create just an abundance of cute and cheerful thank you cards. If you've been making thank you cards for the Frontline heroes in your community, I'd love to hear about it. Please let me know in the comments below. If you want to see more card making videos, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell so you can be notified every time I have a new video available. I want to send a big shout out and thank you to all the Frontline heroes who are watching. And as always, for all of you, please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon.